So next I would like to introduce Chelsey Toth, who is going to be coming to speak with us on behalf of Mosaic Forest Management, and they have prepared a talk on Scotch Broom and impacts on forestry. So take it away, Chelsey.
Thank you. I'm just gonna work on sharing my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Chelsey Toth. I'm a forester working for Mosaic Forest Management. Our company was created through an affiliation of two companies, Island Timberlands and Timber West, in 2008. So it's quite a significant portion of the land base on Vancouver Island in BC. The two companies operated side by side on BC's coast for more than 100 years. So it's private forest land that I work on. And then in the north, we have a tenure and a tree farm license as well. So that's just a little bit of a background on where I'm coming from. So broom has been an issue on Vancouver Island for about 150 years. We have now labeled it as a nuisance species in BC. So it's a nuisance weed species. For the most part, it interferes with crop tree establishment and increases our regen delay. That's the amount of time it is to get trees growing after the start date of harvest. And it's, of course, so I should go to my next screen. There we go. Just 1 second, just gonna move mine so I can't see myself. And so, and then of course it's decreasing our site productivity. So, yeah, and then we also have gorse in many places, and to a lesser extent than the broom, but it's still something that I deal with regularly in forestry. So in Canada, we have a little bit of different situation than down in the States. So there are only actually 5 herbicide active ingredients registered for forestry use. If only we could use picloram. It's proven to be much more effective, but however, it's not registered for forestry use. Tricloper is the probably most effective and readily used chemical that we are using here in BC. So in terms of Health Canada's pest management and regulatory agency, BC actually has the highest regulations in Canada in terms of herbicide use. So we do not have very many tools in our toolkit when it comes to herbicide, and we actually have nothing that we are allowed to use in the riparian area. So for the most parts, that we have a 10-meter pesticide-free zone that we have to adhere to, and then with glyphosate, we can get down to the 1-meter high water mark, but again, nothing between that high water mark or below the high water mark of 1 meter. So as you can see from this picture, broom will actually define my career as a forester. It's pretty prolific in the southern Vancouver Island. I probably operate in the most expensive area in terms of brush control on any portion of our land base. So as you can see, it grows aggressively in many portions of our land base. It's typically an ingress from utility right-of-ways and power lines. So you can see this is a hydro right-of-way managed by BC Hydro, where they actually prefer the lower lying vegetation of broom compared to trees that can grow up into the power lines. So we have a mature broom seed bank from multiple rotations. We've had significant fire occurrence over the past few years, a very large fire, particularly in the Souk region that I operate in, and a large amount of the seed bank was expressed. Of course, ground disturbance from harvesting creates ideal conditions for broom to grow. And we also have an issue in this area, particularly in the southern Vancouver Island, where we've had a high contractor turnover due to industry and union issues within our land base, and also climate changes leading to favorable conditions for broom. Yeah, so basically it's a major issue for us, and a very expensive one. So I know I touched on some of this previously, but broom competition is causing low stocking in our many of our plantations, particularly in the southern portions, in what I call our Souk drainage. And it's creating NSR, which is not sufficiently restocked in many of our blocks, and we're having a higher amount of plantation failures. We're having an increase in regen delay. We have an increase in regen delay, and it's negatively impacting our growth and yield curves. So we're having a longer amount of time to reach establishment, years to breast height, and of course, it's harder to achieve free growing status. So it's cost a significant amount of money, and I will kind of get into the financials later on. But we've been finding that over the past decade or 2 decades, we're just spinning our wheels doing repeated treatments, and the astronomical costs in some of our operating areas. And then we were seeing a lot of crop tree damage during chemical treatments, and we're finding that manual treatments of the young, really thick, dense carpet broom, we call it, is ineffective. So in our past practices, we did conventional brushing treatments. They were found ineffective and damaging. Manual treatments were resulting in resprouting, and as you can see here, there was this was 1 year post a manual treatment with a brush cutting saw that I did, and you can see that it's densely filled in, and our little crop trees are getting suffocated. So we did some operational trials, and we brought in someone from the interior of BC to recommend some treatment options, and we really found that for us there's no cost-effective treatment for managing broom using glyphosate. It doesn't fully die. We were finding too much collateral damage to our trees, and workers really dislike applying it. The climate here for workers applying pesticides is different than other areas. We have very sensitive workers here in BC. You can see there's the collateral damage here on the left-hand side. Okay, just making sure I'm staying on time. Okay. This is just a tour with some foresters and some agro sciences chemical reps who came to see some of our broom. As you can see, it's or Univar is now called Buceris, and Dow AgroScience is now called Corteva. Everybody's going through affiliations and mergers, but in this picture, we our worst broom areas, and we call this old growth broom that is far over our heads, and it's actually only 3 to 4 years old. So some of our key learnings and our from our past management practices and how we were planning to move forward after kind of being inefficient for several decades is that we increased the amount of surveys to help identify problems. So we were coming into the plantations earlier than we would have before, earlier than one growing season after plantation. We were trying new chemical options and applications. Multiple treatments are required still, but we're trying to find the most effective way with new chemical combinations. And we've actually tried pre-emergent treatments, which until 2019, there actually wasn't a pre-emergent that was registered for forestry use in BC. So we were actually the first company to apply a pre-emergent in BC last year, and we only did 2 hectares. So some of our strategies, I just want to apologize to everybody for the size of the font in this slides, but I kind of wanted to fit it all in. I know it's a no-no when it comes to PowerPoint presentations to have things this small, but what we've done is in our system, because we're managing so many different blocks at a time, that we've created a red light label for any high risk blocks that contain greater than 30% swaths of carpet broom that have a burn history or are immediately adjacent to any of our problem blocks. And then we have a lower risk label for at-risk blocks, which is called the yellow light. We've avoided burning in our at-risk blocks. As you know, you get a full expression of the seed source. So burning is for debris management and hazard abatement after we've harvested a setting there to burn all the leftover debris. Again, planning early surveys and applying a site prep chemical. So we were doing a little bit of foliar glyphosate if the broom was present before planting, but we trialed a product called Katana, which is a site prep with an active ingredient that has 2 different modes of action, and we tank mixed it with glyphosate. We've been found it very beneficial to ensure that the best stock is available and planting the highest performing species. So our seedlings have not genetic modification, but they have a genetic worth and a genetic gain that, for example, Douglas fir seedlings will grow 17% faster than a natural seed, and our cedar is 22%. So planting those fast growing species in broom areas has seemed to help. We fertilize the stalk at the time of planting. We install browse guarding prior to or concurrent with planting, and that's because at the time of brushing, when you brush away the broom or the broom dies, it kind of leaves your little seedlings exposed for deer, and they almost pick them off immediately after. And then we have to ensure timely brushing and to minimize collateral damage. So you could see that we were actually reaching silviculture costs of $16 per cubic meter when our average should be about $4. So that's a significant increase when you're dealing with broom plantations. I think on this slide, I just want to bring everybody's attention to the last line, the last row, which kind of totals the amount. So that we've been spending annually just in my South Island operating area. So up to 1.8 million in 2019 on Broom to implement our Broom strategy. Again, we saw those costs and hoping that we can get ahead of it and lower the costs as we move into the future and projecting into 2023. This was an area that was treated with fire in the lower portion of the screen. And you can see how densely the broom came in, and then just a successfully released tree. So we are aggressively treating broom in our broom infested areas through our broom management strategy. We're finding that triclopyr is the best chemical that we can find or that we're allowed to use. It's actually causing mortality instead of just dieback. And we think we've coined the term, and someone can tell us if we haven't, that we're applying it as a phasal treatment. So it's a combination of a basal application and a foliar application. So phasal treatments don't actually require you to treat the entire plant. So unlike foliar, if you miss a stem, you're still getting mortality to the whole entire plant rather than just dieback. So we're really finding that these phasal treatments are effective if properly applied by the applicators. There's lots of training involved, using low volume backpack sprayers and minimizing the collateral damage to the trees. And we're trying to ensure that we're not overusing chemical and try to avoid repetitive treatments over several years and just do early repeated chemical treatments. Just again to apologize for the size of this font, but I just wanted to show you what our product mixes were for our phasal treatment and then the time period for use. So these are the specialized nozzles that we've been using, and so phasal is applied when the broom leaves are present, so mid-April to October, and then the basal applications using Garlon RTU can be done at any time of the year, obviously taking into consider weather and environmental conditions. Yeah. What else do I want to convey on this slide? We only need to apply the application to the lower third of the plant and to ensure that we're protecting the crop tree. There's times where we have used a cone or something to avoid some drift or damage from drift. We're trying to look into affordable browse protection. So as I said, once you kill the broom, these little seedlings are exposed to ungulates. So we've been actually trialing these free grow shelters. They're made here in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island by a local First Nations group called the Cowichan Tribes. And they've been working for us, and we prefer them over simulcast cones. Killer netting is something that we've been trialing as well. So wrapping this yellow mesh netting over the trees, and it's installed at the time of planting. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and yeah, we're going to keep fighting the good fight against broom here on Vancouver Island, and hope that at some point we can get on top of this nuisance weed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chelsey. What a great talk. So